If I remember the victims specifically, there were not all victims of one background or one nationality. So I think what they mean by that is, I don't know that they spoke to the targeting of the grocery store or that specifically, but the individuals who were impacted.
With Miranda Khan, J.D. Hayworth, back with you on America's Forum. We just heard State Department spokesman Jen Psaki yesterday defending her boss after the president claimed the terror attack on a kosher grocery store in Paris was, quote, random.
Yeah, Psaki, though, created an even bigger mess. Enter spokesman Josh Earnest, who took to Twitter trying to clarify the administration's position, tweeting, quote, "Our view has not changed. Terror attack at Paris kosher market was motivated by anti-Semitism. POTUS didn't intend to suggest otherwise."
And Ernest's tweet was followed by one from Psaki, trying to clarify her earlier comments as well. "We've always been clear that the attack on the kosher grocery store was an anti-Semitic attack that took the lives of innocent people." Wow. Explanations leading to more confusion. Let's go in depth on this lack of coordination between the State Department and the White House. And to do so, we're joined via telephone by Star Parker, the founder and president of the Center for Urban Renewal and Education. Star, was the imprecise language on the part of the president when he used that term random, or do you think he really has doubts that the Paris terror attack, or the second one there, was in fact an act of anti-Semitism?
I think that the president is stirring the pot because he understands that many people around the world are extremely frustrated, not just about radical Islam, but also about terrorism, about the state of the economy. And he's stirring the pot because this is what secular humanists do when they have power. Whether he used the term to just get a rise again the way that he did last week at the prayer breakfast, I don't know. But what I do know is that this president is instigating and creating tensions that are unnecessary as we're in such a crisis around the world and in our own country.
Star, in your opinion, does this just kind of add more fuel to the fire for those who don't trust this administration to defend Israel?
Well, I hope so, because I hope that people wake up. The more he speaks, the more he awakens that sleeping giant in our nation that understands the fundamental truths about America and what has made us so great. They understand traditional values and what it means to make proper choices. They understand limited roles of government, how the government is to protect our interests, not to plunder them. They understand free markets, that this is how we get the engine for tomorrow's jobs, and they understand national allegiance and defense. And that's one of the main reasons that you see this heavy debate on immigration. He has awakened those that were just that silent American who just got up every morning and did the right thing and did not notice that we have been, as a country, taken over by extremists, by secular humanists who have a worldview in statism. And now that they are awakened, he's not only pushing and instigating, but we are, yes, fighting back. I believe many are fighting back. Some think the Tea Party is over, and it's not. This is a momentum in our society that is not going to go away anytime soon, because most Americans who are the hardworking, who are the diligent, who are the God-fearing, understand that we're in a very critical crossroads similar to the 1850s, to where we can't go on like we've been going for the last 50 or 60 years.
Star, as you were making your comments, we saw some scenes of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on a couple of occasions now during the course of this interview. You've identified President Obama as a secular humanist. Perhaps you want to tell us a little more about what you mean by that, and in the minute that remains, how does the president's seeming nonchalance about the nature of the anti-Semitic attack, how does that affect our relationship with Israel? We've got about a minute left.
I believe, I'm going to answer that in the second part first, I believe that it builds a resolve in the American people that Israel's values are our values, the core fundamental beliefs of America, our exceptionalism, our national allegiance, our limited role of government, our free markets, and our traditions. This is what we have in common, and this is what secularists don't like. And Barack Obama is a secularist. And in fact, it's what he and the Muslims have in common, the radical extreme of Muslim and and this president and all secularists have in common is that they hate that biblical worldview. And so therefore they hate America and they hate Israel. But it is built on their resolve. No, there are many, many people who would not have thought about getting up and saying, I want the interests of Israel protected, who are getting up today saying exactly that thing.
And we will continue our conversation with Star Parker right after this timeout on America's Forum.
Did President Obama know, in your opinion, when he said this, made a comparison to the Crusades, that all hell was going to break loose, pardon the pun? Did he know?
I think he knew what he was saying, and he knew that it was provocative. Absolutely, I think he knew that.
David Axelrod, the former advisor to President Obama, appearing with Bill O'Reilly there on Fox, saying his former boss knew exactly what he was doing when he made those comments, comparing the Christian Crusades of almost 1,000 years ago to the ISIS atrocities of recent days. This, of course, coming at the presidential prayer breakfast earlier this month. We're continuing the conversation with Star Parker, the founder and president of the Center for Urban Renewal and Education. Star, your take on what the president had to say at the prayer breakfast.
Well, I was at the prayer breakfast, and as I said before, it was verbal rape. We weren't expecting it. We didn't want it. That meeting was about unity. That whole breakfast, it was my first one. And their agenda, if you will, the agenda of the breakfast was to bring together the Jewish community, the Muslim community, and the Christian community to say the ultimate, can we get along? Can we coexist in a world deep within our traditions and our faith without killing each other? And for Barack Obama to come in there, and after a very uplifting time, I mean, King Abdul himself was supposed to be there if he hadn't rushed back to Jordan after the killing of their pilot to read the scripture, the New Testament scripture. A rabbi was there. The Pope weighed in a letter. And then for Barack Obama to get up there, it was verbal rape. We didn't want it. It was hard to sit through. And then when it was over, everybody in the room just felt like horrible. We just pulled all the air out of the room. And then there was a break after, of course, and then a recovery time, because it's not just a breakfast, it's a luncheon, and then there's a dinner, and there's sessions in between of these three communities trying to come to terms with our history, if you will, and move to the next level, because what we all have in common right now is a radical, extreme Muslim community that is insistent on forcing their worldview, not just in the Middle East, but in Africa, in, as you know, Europe, and even in our own country. We're having great debate in some of our schools about Sharia law and whether they get that taught in our public schools. So Barack Obama knew what he was doing. He did it on purpose. An analogy would be similar to two people finally getting along after warring for years or maybe even generations, and then a third party comes in and says, what are you guys doing? Don't you remember when he hit you? Don't you remember when he pulled your hair? You know, and those types of things. It's very petty, and the whole world is at stake. This is the leader of the free world who is playing games. Very serious accusations, I know, but very serious, these matters.
And Star, one of the president's usual defenders, Washington Post columnist Eugene Robinson, took the president to task. Here's what he wrote, quote, "The admonition not to get on our high horse about jihadist terror as a unique phenomenon rings hollow, coming from a leader who routinely sends missile-firing drones to blow suspected militants to bits." So even those who usually defend the president take issue with the comments and the overall tone. What is it about the president and this need to constantly lecture? There's about a minute left.
Well, that's a distorted view from Eugene Robinson. I'm not going to give much weight when a liberal pretends that they're going against the president, because what they're doing is sending in even new opportunities for confusion. One of the things that we have to keep in mind, the most loyal constituency for the president right now is the African-American community. But all of the polling data shows that the African-American community is also the most loyal supporter for the protection of Israel's interests. It's fascinating to see the data, and when asked just straight out, does Israel have the right to be an existing state, the black community polls higher than any other community in our country. And yet, there is a real dyslexia when it comes to what the president is doing. So, frankly, I like that the president is exposing his true agenda so that perhaps those that have been most blinded to what he has been doing over the last 6 years will finally have the scales fall off their eyes so they can see that this man is miserably out of touch with what has made America great.
And we will
that
have
his
to leave it
policies are
right
hurting us
there.
the most.
Star Parker, we thank you for your time, and America's Forum will continue after this.